So Paul says, first of all, that suffering produces endurance. And this is just a fact in all aspects of life. If you want to have the endurance to be able to run a long distance, you need to train. You need to go through some suffering. You need to get up and you need to run and you need to feel the pain of running. But in doing that consistently, that will build in you the endurance to be able to go further every time you go until eventually you can run long distances. But you have to put yourself through some suffering. You actually have to put yourself through some pain initially. And even as you continue to train and continue to run, it's going to come with a cost. It's not going to be easy, but in going through that, you develop the endurance to be able to run longer and longer, and as a result, be fitter and healthier and physically better off for going through that pain. But at the same time, if you say, well, I'm going to be a long distance runner, and then you go, I'm going to start training tomorrow, and then you get up and you run a few hundred meters and it hurts too much, so you go back to bed and you never try it again, well, then you haven't pushed through. You haven't allowed the suffering to develop in you the endurance. You actually have to go through the suffering to develop the endurance. And so Paul says that's the same for us in life. Sometimes we need to go through a difficult time, be it emotionally or mentally or spiritually, in order to develop the endurance to be able to handle more. If we give up every time something is just a little bit difficult, then we never grow up. We never actually become strong in any way, shape, or form. There's nothing about us that is in any way developed because we haven't allowed ourselves to go through some difficulties. And so Paul says we rejoice in our suffering because it actually develops in us an endurance so that we can do more. We want to do great things. We want to be great people. You've got to go through some hard times to become that great person, because to do great things comes with a great responsibility. It needs a certain strength of character and a certain strength of will in order to be able to do those incredible things. Where does that strength come from? You're not born with it. You don't just wake up with it. You've got to develop that. That takes time. That takes endurance. It takes practice and pain and suffering in order to go through that. And so in some cases, suffering is the only way that we can develop that personal character in order to be able to do the great things that we want to achieve. And it's fine if you don't want to do that. If you don't want to go through any suffering, if you want your life to be perfectly easy and never have a bad day, that's fine. Just don't be surprised when you don't do anything at all, let alone great. Don't be surprised if your life doesn't actually amount to really anything at all, because you've never given yourself the opportunity to develop and grow and have the capacity to do the things that you want to do. So there's this great quote that I heard along the way at some point. I can't even remember where, but it says, sometimes the difference between the place where you are and the place where you could be is the pain you're unwilling to endure. And so it's such a great way to put it. The difference between where you are and where you want to be sometimes is going to cost pain. And if you don't get there, it's because you weren't willing to go through the pain to get there in the first place. And so don't be surprised if you just remain where you are and never actually get to that place, because the difference is sometimes is going to be that pain. It's going to be that suffering. And so again, Paul says, rejoice when you go through this suffering, because it brings you to a place that you could not have otherwise been. And so no, suffering is not a bad thing in all cases. In fact, sometimes suffering is a necessary thing. Sometimes suffering is the only thing that is going to bring us to that place that we want to be. And so in that case, Paul says, rejoice in it. Don't hide from it. Rejoice, understanding and seeing the greater thing that it's going to do for you in the long run.